His unhealable wound did not disqualify him from the work that he was about to do. It became the very reason that he was so good at it, because he knew what it was like to live with pain. He knew the kind of hopelessness that people felt when they felt unhealable, because he lived through it himself. And that is precisely the reason he was able to help so many others.
Welcome to Partners in Sublime, where we explore the teachings of depth psychology and Vedic philosophy to achieve the highest levels of personal growth and self-actualization. Join me as we tap into the unconscious for intuitive guidance and creative direction. I'm your host, Shagun Chopra. Let's begin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of Partners in Sublime. Today, we're going to talk about if and how we can help others while we ourselves are struggling. I definitely face this as a coach every day. My clients have problems that I'm still actively working through, and they have patterns that I'm helping them break away from while also doing my own inner work. But I also see this happen in pretty much every other relationship. Parents are asking kids to be a certain way while not being fully there themselves. Teachers are teaching kids emotional regulation skills while working on it themselves, while struggling with it themselves. Bosses are talking to employees about work-life balance when they don't have one in their own life, and so on. So these examples are always there. We are all driven by this innate urge to do better and save the next generation or save whoever we're serving, whether it's our kids, our communities, our clients. We want to help them in a way that we wish we were helped, but we haven't completed our own journey yet. We're still in the process. So if you find yourself struggling with something and using that to make it mean that you cannot serve others the way that you would like to, the way that you would hope, that if you're still working on your own parental issues, you can't parent your child right, that if you're still working on emotional regulation yourself, you can't ask your friend to be more emotionally regulated, and so on, then this episode is really for you. Hopefully, by the end of it, we'll walk away with a perspective that will change how you look at this scenario. So let me answer the short question first. Is it okay to be serving others while we're struggling? Yes. Why and how? We're going to get into that. From studying depth psychology and Vedic philosophy and everything that I have amassed in terms of knowledge over the years, I've come to realize that this question, can we serve others while we're struggling, is essentially based on a false premise. It's based on this idea that being effective at something, being good at something, is based on having arrived first. But we never really arrive. In our personal growth journeys, we're always going, we're always uncovering layer after layer of the material in our unconscious and working through it. And who better than someone who has witnessed these struggles, who is living through them, who is actively working through them, to guide, to serve others who may be going through the same. It is really a misconception that we must be healed before we can heal, or we must conquer something before we can teach it or espouse it in the world. It's all a progression, and we're all fellow travelers on this journey together toward the next lesson that we need to learn in this lifetime. Now, in past episodes, I've talked about the concept of archetypes, these universal blueprints that our experiences fall into. It's a way of making sense of our lives. So, if you're struggling with this question, can I serve others while I'm struggling? It's good to ask yourself, what archetype may be involved here? Have other people before me experienced this? And what did they do? And how did they handle this? Because all that innate wisdom is within us, and we need to access it, bring it to the forefront so we can use it to enrich our lives. It's not the first time someone is walking this path. This path has been walked before. And your role is to tap into that wisdom that is within you and learn from the people who walked this path before, learn from the myths and stories that have encapsulated these experiences and use that to propel your own journey forward. So, the archetype that I think applies here the best is that of the wounded healer. Again, the best place to look for archetypes is myths and stories. They are across different cultures. And as universal as archetypes are, they get their names from the places that they originate. You can give an archetype any name that you like, as long as you're referring to the same dilemma, the same central problem, the same conflict, and the overcoming of that conflict. So the word wounded healer is drawn from the Greek myth of Chiron. Chiron was a centaur. He was half human and half horse, and he had the gift of being immortal. But in a war, he was struck by this very poisonous arrow that caused him excruciating pain. But because he was immortal, he wouldn't die, and he had to live with and work through this pain all his life. Chiron actually goes on to become one of the greatest healers the world has ever seen. His unhealable wound did not disqualify him from the work that he was about to do. It became the very reason that he was so good at it, because he knew what it was like to live with pain. He knew the kind of hopelessness that people felt when they felt unhealable, because he lived through it himself. And that is precisely the reason he was able to help so many others. There is this wonderful quote from James Hollis, who is a Jungian analyst par excellence. He has written so many books on Jungian ideas, and his words are always so wise and so pertinent. So I'd like to share one quote here. Hollis says, "We can only go as far with our clients as we are willing to go ourselves." Note his choice of words. He's not saying that we can only go as far with our clients as we have gone ourselves. That would imply that we have reached this definitive place from where we have the vantage point of serving others. That's not what he's saying. He's saying we can take them as far as we are willing to go, which implies that we are already in our own process. We are working on our own things as we are supporting others doing the same thing. And Hollis, of course, is a Jungian analyst, and this quote is made in the context of analytical psychology. So he's referring to these people as clients, but you can replace this with anyone in your life. You can replace it with your kids, your family members, the people who report to you, your spouse, anyone that you want to be of service to, but feel incompetent to serve. One thing that comes up for us when we try to be there for others, when we try to help others and serve others, is we often feel like saying things to them, giving them advice, that if we're being honest with ourselves, we're having trouble following ourselves. We often tell our kids to play nice and share, and be quiet and not be too rough. And we can all point to times in our lives where we have not been able to do ourselves. Sometimes even the same day. You tell your kids something, don't scream at your younger brother or sister. And then 30 minutes later, you're screaming at somebody, maybe the kid. So, how can you tell them to do something when you yourself are not being able to embody it? So, the doubt is very real. I definitely get that. But if we were to connect with this wounded healer archetype, you would see this act of screaming later at your child as a way of understanding what might be going on for them. Like, wow, it is really hard for your child to be nice in this moment when they are taken over by all this angry, furious energy, just like you are. Look how much you struggle and look how much they struggle. And that builds compassion, that builds connection, that builds this unbreakable rapport where you feel like someone really sees you, that they get you. And that really is the first step for change. We cannot really transform until we're in this container where we feel seen and heard and deeply understood. That's how your children want to feel around you. That's how your friends want to feel around you. That's how your colleagues and coworkers and subordinates want to feel around you. And if you're in a helping profession, that is definitely how your clients want to feel around you. You do not have to create a facade where you're over there and you've made it, and now you're showing the path to others. You get it because you've been there. So hopefully this tells you why suffering is not a barrier to serving others. But let's get a little bit more clear on what causes suffering in the first place. There are many causes of sufferings, and I won't be able to go into all of them today. But one that I think is relevant for today's episode is this tension between a part of us that wants to do this and a part of us that wants to do that. A lot of suffering is caused by contradiction. I want to spend more time with my kids, but I should also be working and being productive. I want to be really close to this person, but I want to maintain my independence. I really want to eat something that is very tasty, but I also want to be fit and watch my weight. All these are examples of the daily contradictions that run our lives. Moment to moment, if you observe yourself, you will always find a part of you that's pitted against another part of you. And both these parts are just wrestling it out in your mind. So we find ourselves constantly toggling between these two positions. Maybe I should do more of this. Maybe I should do more of that. Maybe I should spend more time with kids. Oh, I'm falling behind at work. Maybe I should spend more time at work. Oh, now I'm ignoring my kids. Or maybe I should do things that bring me joy and I'm going to eat a bunch of sweets. And oh no, I'm going to stop eating all sweets and I'm going to watch my weight starting tomorrow. Oh, I want to work for myself. Oh, I want to work for someone else. And we are just like a ball between two tennis rackets. We're just going back and back and forth between these two opposites. And if you look at the question of like, can I serve others while I'm still struggling? It is basically a tension between these two opposites, right? On one hand, you have the desire to serve. On another hand, you're still struggling and you are thinking of them as binary things where you can only do one and not do the other. So you can either shut your shop and just focus on your own healing. No, do not enter into any relationship until you are healed. Or you can go after that relationship. You can go after the work you have to do in the external world and put your own healing aside and not focus on it. So if the mind thinks of these as two opposites, one precludes the other, you can't have them both at the same time, it will cause real struggle, it will cause suffering. Now, if we zoom out for a bit, Jung's ideas are part of a branch of psychology called depth psychology. This branch started with Sigmund Freud. And Freud's particular brand of psychology was called psychodynamic because it dealt with the energy that is locked up in the psyche and the way it moves and the way it creates patterns. So, when you think about these two opposites that you are torn between, this tension is holding a lot of energy. And the more you hold this tension, the more energy is getting created. It's like exercising a muscle at the gym. The more tension you hold, the stronger it is getting. Like it's getting ready to explode. Jung said, the greater the tension, the greater the potential. So instead of looking at your suffering as, oh my God, I'm torn between these impossible scenarios that are totally opposite of each other, you want to think, wow, there's real great tension here. And this means that there's so much energy locked in this tension that is going to release once this tension is released. And how do we release that tension? We don't pick sides. We don't make a pros and cons list. We don't flip flop between one outcome the other. We take this tension, we take this contradiction, and we go one level above it, and we step into a place of paradox. Now, paradox is not about creating a compromise between this part and this part. Paradox is about rising above the contradiction and realizing that one side is more meaningful because of the other. Why is taking some time for yourself to relax after a long working day so precious? because you worked so hard. If you were just relaxing all day long, it wouldn't be worth it, right? It wouldn't make that time special. Similarly, taking time to work is precious because this is when you create something meaningful, and you have to pull away from all the things you could have done, like being on the beach or watching TV or relaxing with your friends, to come into the world to create something productive. Work is meaningful because of rest, and rest is meaningful because of work. They are not opposites, they are simply two things that are made meaningful by the power of the paradox. You know what the biggest paradox of life is? That life is more meaningful because there is death, and death is more meaningful because there is life. Imagine living a life that had no end. None of your choices would matter. You could theoretically do everything as long as you lived because you would keep living forever. And it won't be nearly as satisfying as the life that we have today. And similarly, death is such a significant event because look at all the life we live before it. And if we can hold this tension that we're alive because we die, and we die because we once lived, then that is the same concept that we want to apply to every other contradiction that we hold, no matter how big or small. We want to rise above the contradiction and go to the level of paradox. In contradiction, there's a lot of guilt. When you're doing one thing, you feel guilty that you're not doing the other. But in the paradox, you accept that both these sides are meaningful, and they are meaningful because of each other, and they're both true to you. This paradox reframe has helped me so much in my life. Every time I'm torn between the different demands of life, I tell myself, what is something I'm seeing as a contradiction that is not so, that my mind is just conjuring, and I need to rise above so that I can see the big picture and rise above this contradiction. Now, what better story to illustrate a contradiction than the one of Arjuna from Bhagavad Gita? In the Indian epic of Mahabharata, there is a great war that's about to begin. On one side are the Kauravas, on the other side are the Pandavas, and Arjun is the lead warrior and archer on the side of the Pandavas. He asks Krishna, who is a divine being, but right now on the earthly plane as a family friend of both sides, and he agrees to be Arjuna's charioteer for this war. So Arjuna asks Krishna to pull his chariot in between the two opposing armies. On one side, he sees all his brothers and his family. And on the other side, he sees the cousins that he grew up with and the teachers that he was taught by. And he is completely and totally taken over by this contradiction. How can he uphold his dharma as a warrior and protect his family and live for the righteous ideals that his purpose has all been about? And how can he love and nurture and support everybody that he regards as near in family and not hurt them? Now, this is a real dilemma, and no wonder Arjuna thinks that it's unsolvable. In fact, this is how we look at almost every dilemma in our lives. So they all start out as being completely unsolvable. As Arjuna presents this impossible dilemma to Krishna, Krishna does not argue one side over the other. He doesn't say, Arjuna, you must fight. This is your duty. Forget about your family. He also does not say, Arjuna, extend compassion to your cousins. What are you doing? This is so evil. He's not trying to make him choose one or the other. He shows to Arjuna how consciousness works. He explains to him how the universe is structured, how we're all one, and how there is no divide like the one that he's seeing. Ultimately, Krishna helps Arjuna rise above the two poles, and Arjuna is able to make a conscious choice that comes from a higher place. That is the place we want to get to. We want to hold the tension of the opposites as long as we need to until a third way emerges, a third way that transcends both the other ways. And like I said before, it's not a compromise between one and two, it's something that transcends them both. In Arjuna's case, he decides that he is going to fight for the right, but he's going to fight without hatred. He's not going to have that bloodthirsting quality to his archery. He is going to change the mindset with which he approaches this war. So his path was not to deny his warriorness or to block out his compassion. His path was to find one that integrates both and is superior to either one or the other. So, this idea of holding the tension of the opposites until a third way emerges is, in my view, very similar to the idea of the Mahagunas in Vedic philosophy. We've talked about them in past episodes. There's Rajas, which is the quality of action, of doing, of becoming. And then there is tamas, which is stagnant, inertia, ignorance. And sattva encompasses both of them and rises above them. It's this quality of action that we take with clarity, with harmony, in a state of balance where we're not pulled by one extreme or the other. So I hope that gives you an understanding of what causes suffering and how holding that tension of opposites for ourselves becomes the vehicle for serving others who are holding the same tension. As always, to illustrate what I just spoke about, we're going to listen to a coaching session. This one features Irina. Irina is a mental health professional and she's struggling with something of her own right now and is really questioning her ability to help others who are going through the same struggles that she is. Listen to the session, see how she explores this tension, and I will see you on the other side.
What is alive for you today?
So, something that's been on my mind lately, for context, I'm in the mental health field, and sometimes I feel like because of my own personal struggles, I wonder if I'm able to truly help people while I'm going through my own things.
Hmm.
And I feel like I deal with certain feelings of maybe incompetency because, well, how can I help others when I'm struggling myself and I haven't figured everything out for myself?
Is there something specific you're dealing with right now?
I feel like I've been challenged with certain relationships in my life right now. Um, I recently went through a breakup, and um, different challenges with friends over the last year. And when I have clients talk to me about these things and I give them advice, I can't help but have these moments of maybe transference in my life where I think, well, why can't I follow that same advice? And am I even qualified to help others when I can't figure these things out myself?
Yeah. Let's make it more specific. So, what's something that you found yourself saying to, or at least thinking about in your head, like, oh, this would be good for this client, and then feeling like, wow, I'm not doing it myself?
Yeah. So, for example, I have a client who um, has been going through a breakup for a really long time. And we talked about how this person is no good for her and how she should, cut him off and stop thinking about him,
Mhm.
because that's not giving her any use in her life. And she should just be focusing on her and her success and her progress and her career. And here I am actively grieving, processing, and having a hard time taking my same advice.
Mhm. Do you feel the pressure to move on from whatever relationship that just ended and get
Yeah,
on with your life, much the way that you would like to see your client do?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where's the pressure coming from?
Definitely myself. You know, this inner voice again that I should be doing better. I
Mhm.
have all the tools. I know what's right and what I need, but I can't seem to follow my same
Mhm.
advice.
Yeah. It's like be done grieving already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a part of it that's trying to dismiss. and be done with whatever happened, but I'm also someone who likes to feel things very deeply. And I don't know if the feeling it deeply is actually helping me process and get over things, or if it's just re-traumatizing me and stopping me from being able to move forward.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know you started by asking about like what should you do with these clients? Are you even competent to help them? But you know that this is really about you. And you
Yeah.
seem to be torn between using all the tools that you have studied and know about to move on and productively get on with life and really feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
So both these are true to you, but they seem to be at conflict with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Say more about the need to feel it all.
The need to feel it all. I feel like I've always been like that. I I like to feel everything deeply, and I feel like it takes courage to feel things deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like feeling is the root of life, right? I feel like we're not alive if we don't feel and let ourselves feel. But maybe something that gets in the way is this assumption that I have that others don't feel quite as deeply as I do.
Mm-hmm. And then it probably triggers you when you see others not feeling their feelings,
Yeah.
almost dismissing them or bypassing them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel that way in so many aspects of life when it comes to my peers, even on this career journey that I'm in, but men that I've dated, um, and friends, certain friends that I have. It's
Yeah.
just, I feel like I always resort to feeling things deeply, and sometimes I feel so alone in that. And I wonder
Mm-hmm.
why I do that.
Yeah. So it's really important to you. And you know how projection works. When other people are essentially dismissing their feelings, when feelings are at the heart of how you feel alive, it can feel triggering. And you might look at them and be like, why are they doing that? Like, that's not the way to be. And that's one side of it. And on the other side, if they stew too long in their feelings, then they are not getting over things quickly or repeating patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think in your mind, there's like the sweet spot
Yeah.
of feel everything, but don't linger. So anytime you see anything that's like outside that sweet spot, it feels not as good to you. It doesn't feel natural. It's not something
Yeah.
you'd want in yourself.
I'm struggling to find that sweet spot, right? Of how can I feel enough and be fulfilled by that feeling and then let go and also progress and do what I need to do. I feel like I'm just constantly being triggered by the word that you're using, right? So it's like, I'm like, do this, but you shouldn't be doing this too much. Do this, but you're not doing this enough.
Mhm. Grieve, but don't grieve too
Yeah.
much. Like make sure you are also being like a productive being and
Yeah.
don't dismiss your emotions entirely and pretend like
Yeah.
you're having a normal day when you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you feel torn between them right now because in your mind, it's such a contradiction, right? It's pulling you in both directions. Because if you were to let yourself just fall into the feeling completely, then maybe you are right in saying that it's hard for you to show up for your clients because you would not be able to separate from that grief in order to show up for them.
Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you're just being very like methodical about, okay, this happened, I'm just going to get my life together, let's just do all these things, then you're being disingenuous with your clients because here you are telling your clients to
Yeah.
feel, and then you're
Yeah.
not doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So it very much feels like a conflict situation, you
Yeah.
being torn in these two directions. Like, what's the good balance? And we can talk about it certainly, but I think especially because this deals with feelings, it might be nice to do a little visualization so
Okay.
we can bypass the thinking part of your
Hmm.
brain and
Yeah.
get to the feelings. Okay.
Sure.
right? So try to take as relaxed a stance as you can so that your body doesn't have to do much effort in keeping yourself afloat. Try to relax and let go of any bodily tension. Open yourself to the possibility of connecting with your inner self, the same self that is in all of us, the same self that is but a reflection of the collective. Now, using your imagination, I want you to visualize two circles. Step into the first circle. This is the part of you that wants you to move on, wants you to not linger, wants you to not waste your time and make yourself productive and useful in the world again. See what it's like to embody this way of being. And as you stand in the circle, just notice how it feels in you. Notice what thoughts come up for you, what feelings come up for you. This part of you is true. You can thank this space for letting you embody it, for welcoming you, and you can step out of the circle. Now I invite you to turn your attention to the other circle. This is the part of you that wants to feel it all. This is the part of you that wants you to hold no feeling back, to let your emotions flow like a river does. As you step into this circle, notice how you feel. Notice what you're thinking. Notice any bodily sensations. When you're in this circle, it's okay to be swept away by your feelings. There's no holding back. All the emotions can move through you. And when you feel like you've embodied this state, you can affirm to yourself that this is true. This part of you is true. And I invite you to step out of the circle now. Keep your eyes closed and keep looking at both these circles that you just inhabited. Visualize the circles coming close together, coming close in the center, creating a little bit of an overlap with each other. Step into this overlap and just for a moment, allow yourself to embody both these sets of truths, not one or the other. They're both true and they're both you. And whenever you feel ready, you can start getting in touch with your external environment now. Come out of the imagination and come back to the room we're in. How was that?
It was really nice. Yeah. It was nice to feel that. And what was interesting is I was surprised at which circle felt more comfortable.
Mm.
And merging them was hard, but I had the thought come up that the truth, the real truth is in the middle, right? Both truths are true. The combination, interjection of them is me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
What circle felt hard? I'm curious.
The emotional one,
Mm-hmm.
the one where I feel everything deeply. And I feel like that's usually the circle that I live in. But for the first time, seeing myself more objectively outside of just the feelings, I felt some kind of energy, like I felt more energized through it. But I think that when we combine them, I could still channel the energized feeling from the first circle. It felt like me in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not this or that, but you, the you that has it all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel now that you've done the exercise that
you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to be in one or the other circle?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Which circle would invite more guilt or shame or pressure?
That's a good question. Honestly, the emotional one.
Yeah. Maybe you've been telling yourself that you are feeling it deeply, but you are holding yourself back from feeling it deeply or judging yourself for doing so when you
Yeah.
do, kind of what your client is doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how, like, in therapeutic relationships, we just keep coming across the thing that we have to work on as practitioners too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think you could be there for this client that you had in mind now that you've experienced, even briefly, being in that center space?
I think channeling that both can be true and
Mhm.
seeing what will be most fulfilling for this client, right? And I think
Mhm.
we define fulfillment in different ways, but understanding for her what is what is the path that's going to make her feel satisfied, um, and energized and activated to continue her growth and her process while also holding the truth of the fact that this relationship was meaningful,
Mhm.
but finding energy in that rather than guilt or shame.
Yeah, letting her really own all parts of her and being in the middle and embracing them,
Yeah,
not forcing her to be in one or the other circle.
yeah. Kind
Yeah.
of like what you did with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. How would you summarize what you got from being in the middle?
There were elements of the two individual circles active at the same time. It's not as stuck and it's not running a marathon. It's just walking, right?
Yeah. Walking while
Yeah.
carrying the load of your
Yeah.
feeling,
Walking
being
while
present.
carrying. Yeah. Not running away, but also not just sitting down.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a nice metaphor. Yeah. So I know you talked about feeling incompetent with your client at the beginning, but you also mentioned that you felt your friendships too can feel less deep and maybe surface level
Mhm.
sometimes. So if this is the message you got from your unconscious, that you can walk while carrying all your emotions with you, one step after another, how might you be able to apply that to your friendships? When do you find yourself doing the two circle thing? And how can you be in the middle?
Yeah, that's a good question. This friend is someone who was there for me during a really hard time in my life.
Mhm.
And I slowly felt her kind of losing interest almost in being my friend. And it felt really painful that the more that I felt like I was actually getting better and relying on her less and trying to be just a friend so we have like an equal friendship or a give and take. Um, I started seeing her like kind of stop wanting to be my friend, and there came a point where she would just kind of ignore me. And I see her very often just because we work in a similar environment. So there came a day where it she kind of made it clear that she doesn't want to be my friend, but I think that we still have to remain friends just because we see each other. And I feel like I've had a hard time in both circles where I want to feel it all and give and understand why this happened and replay all of that in my head to understand. In the other circle where I just move on is telling me, okay, you don't need this person in your life. What's done is done. But then finding the balance of saying, this was meaningful, this meant something for me in my life, but also recognizing that it might not be what it was. That's still that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. You still have, I suppose, raw feelings about
Yeah.
just getting abandoned in this friendship, essentially.
Yeah. Without
It,
understanding, right?
yeah. Not getting any closure, not
Yeah.
getting any explanation for why someone doesn't want to be your friend.
Yeah.
And and a part of you really wants to like lean into the pain of that because it is quite painful. And another part of you is saying, no, it's water under the bridge. What's done is done. Like move
Yeah.
on, just say hi and in the hallway or nod and
Yeah.
pretend like nothing happened.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's hard for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. What if you could do the thing where you carry your load and walk in this situation? What would that look like?
I think that would look like showing up for myself when I see her and emotions come up and recognizing that there's a space for them within me, and it's okay to feel those things, but choosing not to ruminate in a self-destructive sense because it's also not bringing me fulfillment to do that. It's not serving me.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, rather than a contradiction, it's almost like you need those two sides because if it were too much of one or the other, if you could just move on and pretend like really nothing happened, like that would be such a sterile way of living where it meant nothing to you. Like just like that, it's over. And if you
Yeah.
lingered on so much, it'd be hard to function at your place of work. It'd be hard to be there for others, essentially, that you are serving, or even just getting ready to be a clinician.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I need both sides. It's not one or the other.
Mhm. Yeah. Anything else that is coming up for you as we're having this discussion?
No, I think that's a powerful thing that we need both sides. It's not a contradiction. I like what you said.
Mhm.
It's hard to live completely in one side or the other, and it's not fulfilling.
Mhm.
Welcome back, everyone. So that was Irina. She was so open and so raw about her struggles and very willing to do the work that it takes to transcend the dilemma that she was facing. So let's break down what happened there. The first place I always like to start is a person's conscious personality. Now, if you look at Irina's conscious personality, you could say she's a deep feeler. She likes to feel things deeply. She believes that that is the way to be alive. She believes that feeling deeply is what makes her who she is. So that is her persona. And it's such a great persona, right? Because there's so many personas out there where people don't feel anything. And at the very extreme, if we didn't feel anything, we could commit all sorts of heinous crime and not feel a thing. So she considers this a good thing, and many people in society might agree with her and gets reinforced by her profession, right? She's in the mental health space. Everyone there is encouraging you to feel your feelings. So she's chosen this profession because, in a way, it fits with her persona, it affirms her persona, and there is really nothing wrong about it. We all need a persona to function in the world. Otherwise, we'll be just groups of consciousness trying to interact with other forms of consciousness. It's like AI communicating with AI through code versus an actual interface. So we need that. We need a self concept to engage with the world. And she's got a good one. Nothing wrong with it. But as always, in order to create a persona, something always falls into the shadow. So, what may have fallen in the shadow here? If you're someone who feels deeply all the time, then you can't be practical and move on. You can't feel exhausted about feeling, and you can't be shallow. You are a deep feeler. So all that stuff is in your shadow. And how do we find our shadow? We find our shadow in others. More often than not, we uncover our shadow when we find ourselves having a reaction to others. So in this case, Irina gets triggered or has an emotional spike when she sees somebody not feeling their feelings, or when she's working with her client in session and finds herself trying to navigate her towards a practical way of being where she would move on from the relationship that the client was in. So, this is her own shadow trying to express itself in other people. Her own deep desire to not carry everything so heavily is showing up in how she perceives other people. Other people should be moving on quickly from relationships that didn't serve them. Um, Other people should be feeling things more deeply. All these are her shadow elements that are getting projected onto others. So, and the good thing is she's aware. She's aware that these things bother her, which means that's your clue. This part is in your shadow. When we have any level of self-awareness, we realize that other people doing this and me doing that is not about them and me. It's about the different polarities within me. My conscious idea of who I should be, which is I should feel everything deeply, and my unconscious idea, the part of me that's exhausted from feeling everything deeply and just wants to move on. So, this is the tension that Irina is holding for herself. So, the first thing we do is we pull the projection back from the people that it was casted on, and we see what's going on within ourselves. And as we see that, this tension emerges, this tension between the conscious and the unconscious self, this tension between the deep feeler and the person who has all the coping skills to move on. And in the beginning of the session, you notice that Irina is making the same mistake that we all make. We think that it's going to be one or the other, that we have to make a choice. Either I'm going to feel everything deeply, or I'm just going to make myself busy, get productive, and go on with my life already as if nothing happened. And I have struggled with this myself so much too. No wonder Irina is showing up in my life, because I think I was meant to serve her, because I know what it's like to hold this tension. And now that she knows what it's like to hold this tension, she can serve her own clients. Our typical response to this tension is to argue one or the other. But if we allow ourselves to just witness it, to hold it, as she did when we did the exercise of the two circles, eventually the circles come together. This symbol of two circles coming together and forming a mandorla in the center is from Robert Johnson. And mandorla is, I think, the Italian word for almond. When two circles intersect, it makes an almond shape in the center. When Irina tries to be in this sacred space where both these circles can coexist, there can be two sets of truth. She realizes that it is precisely having both those things that makes her uniquely herself. Like, she's someone who is able to feel deeply and who is able to get moving and get productive and move on. Once she's able to own and integrate that part of her shadow, she's able to rise above it and step into the identity of a wounded healer, one where she's hurting, where she is holding this tension of the opposites, and that becomes the portal to serving others like herself, like the client that she mentioned. She realizes that she can move forward even while carrying her grief, and she can serve others while still being in her own process. So I hope this episode inspired you to look at the caregiving responsibilities in your own life, whether it's toward your family, your community, or professionally toward clients, and see that you don't have to be this perfect person and get to some new frontier. Your struggles are not an obstacle to supporting others. They are the reason you will be able to support them in a way that someone who hasn't walked that path and hasn't dealt with those same things can. You don't need to have done it. You simply need to be willing to do that for yourself. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope that was meaningful to you and it gives you the wisdom you need to move forward as the wounded healer in whatever aspect of life you are being called to do. I hope it motivates you to not run away from the contradictions, but to hold them together sacredly as opposites and rise above them. As always, you can reach out to me if you want to be coached on the show or if you have a question about the process. I would be more than happy to go to the unconscious with you. Take care. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for being my partner in Sublime today. I hope you enjoyed diving into the unconscious with me. To ask a question or get coached on the show, visit shagunchopra.com/ask or click the link below. See you next time.